Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Robert, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Ireland, for having me and my colleagues here today. In the few hours that I've been here in Ireland, I've already felt the very strong spirit that exists here in this country that is very special, and I truly mean that. I visit many countries in the world, and I think Ireland already has what it's got to make any change that it chooses. So I had a lot of opportunities to discuss many things with you, and I can talk all day, but I've been very, very happy to get 25 minutes with you. So I'm going to be focusing on, I guess, the global situation to give you an understanding and perspective of what's happening around the world. And before I do that, you're going to read this disclaimer, which I trust you've already read. Thank you. The beginning, though, of my conversation, if that was too quick, let me know. Okay, that's fine. So I wanted to start with what we're talking about. What is the plant? Cannabis is the plant. Cannabis sativa is the Latin name, the botanical name for both hemp and marijuana. And they're just two made-up names, relatively recently made-up names. And really, there's many complicated differences in different parts of the world, but ultimately there's one line in the middle of them, and the difference is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is THC for short, or the stuff that gets you high. There's either a version of hemp that gets you high or a version of hemp that doesn't get you high. And that is generally where legislation is drawn around the world. And I think you will find that is a key difference. Elixinol has been focused, and I've been focused very much for the last 25 years on the hemp side. And the marijuana side is something that is more recent, introduced into mainstream culture, and we have a small interest, as I'll explain shortly, in Australia on a pharmaceutical level on there. As Robert explained, my background, I've been working in this industry for 25 years now. I developed the first commercial hemp food product in Europe, in the United Kingdom, actually in Wales, when I was living on Anglesey, just across the water. And that product was, I guess, made in my kitchen, sold to friends, families, small stores, and I really built it up from nothing until what it is today, selling hundreds of millions of products all over the world, mainly throughout Europe, in supermarket chains like Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, and these places. But I discovered the benefits of hemp because of its nutritional qualities. I was studying food and nutrition, particularly essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6 particularly. And then I discovered that hemp had the best natural, plant-based, sustainable source of these essential fatty acids. And the more I looked into hemp, the more I realized that this is going to be my life's mission. And it has been ever since, and I believe it will be in the future too, is to share the benefits of this plant with as many people as possible. Because this one plant that grows higher, way higher than this ceiling in 90 or 100 days can actually be used for so many different things. You can use the roots, you can use the outside of the stalk, you can use the inside of the stalk, you can use the flowers, you can use the leaves, you can use the seeds, for everything from bioplastics to fuel to fiber to textiles to medicines, for many different uses. Now we're going to be focusing mainly today on what I specialize in, which is the food and nutraceutical part of the plant. But you know, these are the reasons, though, of why I got involved, the sustainability part. I think using hemp as a building material particularly is so important for carbon sequestration. You can literally take the carbon out of the earth and lock it up into walls that have excellent insulation properties, are pest-free, so are really, really great places to live. And actually being in a hemp building, even though I was really fond of hemp buildings before I'd even been in one, from the theory, actually being in a hemp building really showed me that most buildings are like a plastic bag. We don't realize that because we get so used to it. But when you go in a hemp building that actually breathes, it's like being outside, yet protected by the elements and kept warm. It's a fantastic experience that I recommend for everybody being involved. So I'll move on. So Elixinol Global, which is the company that I run today and I'm CEO of with a fantastic team, is a global consumer brand with multiple cannabis verticals, mainly focused in the CBD supplements area. That's Elixinol on the right, hemp foods area, which is on the left, and also medical cannabis, which we'll discuss shortly. Elixinol listed on the public stock exchange in Australia after 2 decades of working in this industry, and since that time has had a great success and a strong growth curve with over 500% growth in our market cap, and we've raised well over $100 million to support our ongoing growth from a very strong industry moving forward. And the popularity of CBD, or which stands for cannabidiol, that's the active ingredient in the plant, which has many different uses, which we'll come to, has really increased since Elixinol was first founded. And Elixinol was only founded in 2014 by Gabriel and myself. And that growth curve, as you can see by these Google trends, continues to grow even stronger today. But because more consumers seem to be open to trying cannabidiol, Google Trends shows that the search for CBD has actually eclipsed that of cannabis and is coming actually close to beer. I didn't actually do a Google search for CBD and Guinness in comparison, which I should have done, I apologize. But the point being is that CBD is becoming as mainstream as alcohol is in society today. So we are not a medical, Elixinol itself, sorry, is not a medical cannabis company, so therefore we don't make any claims for our products. But what we can say is that people tell us why they use CBD products, and the top reasons for those are, number one, relaxation or stress and anxiety relief. Now, I'm not sure if many people have that in Ireland because it seems a very relaxed place, but most places in the world, that's an extremely important use. Sleep enhancement, so for people like me who work far too much, sleep enhancement is really helpful. Pain management is very significant, of course, and many of us have that in some form. And believe it or not, the fourth main use is for personal care, so skincare, topical products, and things like that. So these are the 4 main uses that people tell us that they use CBD, and that's also showed in general statistics that are available. So the awareness is growing, but only 7% of consumers tested in the US today use CBD, with around 20% of those people who have tested CBD are now using that regularly. But the growth potential is still very significant. And that is all for all ages throughout as well. Though predominantly we have found males between 35 and 44 are apparently the most popular users of CBD products today. Now, the potential effects of cannabis on wellness or other industries, and this is really, hopefully gives you a picture of how significant this is. So 71% of users reduce their reliance on over-the-counter medicines. That's quite a big number. 35% lowered their dependency on prescription medication. 63% of millennials curbed their alcohol consumption, with 32% of Gen Z reducing or eliminating their tobacco use. So many people are reducing or ceasing to use sleeping pills who choose to use cannabis products as well. And we could extrapolate that there will be a major effect on pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, and alcohol and tobacco industries. So it's not surprising that those kind of companies are watching very closely at our industry. Elixinol Global is a truly global company which operates in locations such as Sydney and Bangalore in Australia, Colorado, New York, and California in the United States, and Tokyo in Japan. And most recently, we've set up offices in the Netherlands and have teams in the UK and Spain. We have expansion plans prepared right now for Latin America, New Zealand, and we're looking at other European places to base ourselves also. Now, as I said, this all started with my love for food and nutrition and the essential fatty acid content in hemp foods particularly. My first success, as I said, was the 9 bar, which we've continued recently with high quality finished and packaged goods like this frozen hemp burger here, made using from the seeds, which is produced in our BRC AA grade facility in Australia. You see hemp spreads we've produced, and we have many other finished product goods coming to market shortly. The most recent growth factor for Elixinol, though, has been influenced by our friend Donald Trump when he signed the Farm Bill. I say friend quite loosely there. Between 2017 and 2018, the US market actually doubled in size to $627 million and has a predicted CAGR of around 143%. The market for hemp products is said to reach, and it's a big number, but it's said to reach $22 billion in 2022, which is not very far away. And the gap now between the largest companies in the world in this industry and many others is changing as the industry moves away from the current 29% sales, mainly in natural food store in those industries, to what we expect will be about 64% sales by major retailers. Here are some of the 45 different products that we have at Elixinol today, and you can see those outside. And they're produced in our newly double-sized facility in Colorado, where we're planning to double in size yet again on land we've recently bought adjoining our facility, to show off our new technologies from our strong research and development laboratory, where we're always trying to push the limits of what we can do with this plant. Elixinol announced its first major US retail distribution agreement with the second largest US retailer, who has revenues of over $60 billion a year. We are also in conversations with a number of other similar-sized companies who are multinationals looking for more high-quality, stable, and safe mainstream products. For example, like our $2.50 entry-level CBD powder sachets, aptly named C for create, B for build, and D for dream. The future, we believe, in hemp CBD products are novel delivery devices, something that Elixinol has been founded on for the past 5 years. As was shown firstly in our bioavailable liposomal product, our novel delivery systems of our X-Pen. And our strong R&D department is expected to offer many more bioavailable technologies as ingredients for co-branded and branded products moving forward. So watch this space for some very interesting scientific data proving the improved efficacy of such products. And we expect to do similar projects here in Europe. Now, let's look at how cannabis and hemp has changed in recent times around the world. Starting in Africa. South Africa just last month changed the legal status of CBD, and it was removed from the list of highly controlled drugs. It is now available without prescription, but currently as a trial only for the next 12 months. Africa is also a place where, according to Frontier data, 32% of all cannabis consumers live. I guess they need to relax with all those wild animals, you see. And in case you're interested, Nigeria is the most popular place in the world that smokes cannabis. I had no idea. The European market, though, is also growing, and I believe partly dependent on the guidance of EFSA and the United Nations, led by the World Health Organization's recommendations, supported by industry groups like IHA, and hopefully the groups here based in Ireland, and other great organizations throughout Europe. It seems, though, not all the individual European countries are waiting, as the word of mouth industry growth is now catching on. Here in Ireland, just last month, the Cannabis Risk Alliance, a group of doctors, opposed the decriminalisation of cannabis and appear to believe that criminalising people who use drugs is an effective way to deter people from using them. Global experience in many countries around the world have shown that that is not the case. Let's use some examples from the USA. The equivalent to $150 billion in its tax revenue was lost during alcohol prohibition. $1 billion in taxes have been collected in Colorado, a small state in the USA, since legalization just 5 years ago. Colorado has the similar population to Ireland. Alcohol prohibition also costs the equivalent of $4 billion in today's money to enforce, while still producing criminals like Al Capone. Legalization tends to eliminate illicit markets. After 3 years in Colorado, illicit spending was reduced by nearly a third. We are aware that Ireland has one of the highest drug-related and alcohol-related deaths in the European Union, none of which are contributed by cannabis. We expect that by choosing to control these issues now, the country may benefit from reduced crime rates, increased taxes, and choose how quickly or easily we want this to happen here. So this is a note from the Irish newspapers in 1997, which is related to the first product I brought here in Ireland. I hope to make similar changes here with you all together. Elixinol Europe has experienced these changes of growth. And since its official launch in Europe just 2 months ago, in that short time, we have signed up with the UK's largest pharmacy buying group, and also recently confirmed a co-branding deal in the UK high street shops called Holland & Barrett. Many more pan-European discussions are happening with very significant sized companies through our UK, Dutch and Spanish offices. Elixinol is really now open for business in Europe, and we expect you will see some of our products promoted on the UK television free-to-air channels in the next couple of weeks. Moving on to Asia, where I first studied food and nutrition, and which continues to be a passion of mine, consists of over half of the world's population. Although the Asian culture may not be familiar to us all, it is truly significant for global trends that cannot be ignored. And right now, a growing elder population interested in quality of life is very relevant to hemp CBD and what it has to offer. Although Asia has been off to a slow start in the hemp industry, fueled by supportive government legislation, the trend is certainly upwards. Now let's look at that in more detail. Starting with this wonderful country that I come into Europe from, Japan. Our main project in Japan was the launch of a book on the cannabis industry, where the author chose to promote me as apparently the Steve Jobs of cannabis. Japan is very, very anti-THC based cannabis. However, for CBD, which is the non-psychoactive form, just to remind you of hemp, there is a growing interest in the health and wellness market. Elixinol really grew in Japan soon after my meeting in 2016, pictured on the right there, with the First Lady of Japan, Mrs. Abe, who has recently been hanging out on the bottom left with Donald Trump and his wife in Tokyo just recently. And they also followed me to the UK. Maybe they're interested in the hemp industry. Some of our passionate Japanese team are preparing for a big crowd in what was seen as a tipping point in the Japanese awareness of hemp CBD products just last month. Elixinol Japan promotes CBD mainly for de-stressing and anti-anxiety, and we're now the #1 brand in Japan, being sold in the Tokyo airports, promoted on train stations, and in magazines such as Vogue, Elle, and Elle. We expect Japan to also be a growth market. In this country of 120 million people, the book entitled Green Rush became the #7 in Amazon in just the first few days of its launch. On the other side of Asia, Myanmar, previously known as Burma, has started some small hemp growing projects and is looking at medical cannabis. Thailand recently legalized medical cannabis and has at least one significant government-controlled medical cannabis program with a number of small university trials just beginning. Malaysia, which has the death penalty for cannabis, is now moving very positively towards medical cannabis, a gateway move to hemp and CBD products, as we all know. The Philippines, also known for practically chopping off heads for cannabis, has now created the Compassionate Medical Cannabis Act, something I would have never believed possible just a few years ago. Singapore, similarly against anything out of the ordinary, has also started to experiment with the cannabis plant this year, following Thailand and South Korea in their medical cannabis movements. Bhutan, the mountainous land of happiness, has listed cannabis as a product of economic importance. And China, the land of ancient and modern extremes, representing 18% of the world population, has a long history of cannabis use in traditional medicines. Although not legal for use there, it is prevalent. Recently, China has invested significantly, and that's large in Chinese style, in local production of hemp and cannabis products, mainly for export, which, due to their long historical use, is often of very high quality, despite some people's impressions of China. India, a place where I've spent many years in, has been making moves for medical cannabis. India has a traditional medical system called Ayurveda. This ancient healing technology has its own government department. And cannabis, sometimes known as bhang, that grows wild throughout India, has been very supportive of hemp, cannabis, and also now CBD for many uses. Expect to see Elixinol in India soon. And let's not forget that in India, with its gods that include Shiva, who has many stories to tell about cannabis, represents 17% of the world's population, not to be ignored. And in Sri Lanka, the traditional Ayurvedic physicians are allowed to use cannabis for medicinal purposes also, and are sold throughout national Ayurveda outlets. South Korea, known for the largest spike in the use of hemp foods in the world at the height of its trend a few years ago, consumption rates per population were known to be higher than anywhere else. South Korea has also taken steps recently to allow imports of medical cannabis, another step in the right direction. I want to finish not with another country, but a set of global species that has an endocannabinoid system. That means that we're built for cannabis. Everyone in this room is. CBD may also be good for pets. The global pet market is also huge, around $200 billion in fact, and we seem to care for pets as much as we do ourselves, and this market too is growing. Pets use CBD for much of the similar reasons humans do, and most pet owners familiar with natural therapies seem to be likely to use them for their pets as well. That's why Elixinol invested over $6 million for a strategic equity investment in the #1 US brand for CBD pet products called Pet Relief. Pet Relief is one of the few companies we produce products for as well. So that wraps up my global overview of the hemp market to show you the potential that we have right here in Ireland if we make the right decisions. As Robert says, having high quality production and setting out strong legislation that is clear is really a possibility today. So thank you for being part of the industry evolution, bringing cannabis and hemp into mainstream cultures to change our world for the better. Thank you.